A subject I'm really passionate about is parenting. I absolutely love being a dad. It's one of the greatest things in life. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are, well, one's going off to college, the other one's graduating high school, and the third one's tiny. We started all over. And it's been the greatest adventure of my life. But it's come with some really big challenges and ups and downs, just like being a parent should, right? You're going to learn stuff, you're going to go through stuff. And one of the biggest things that's happened throughout the whole time of being a parent that has made a lot of family members upset and people I've met throughout my life very upset with me is the fact that I'm a stay-at-home dad and my wife's the one that works. And on top of that, like we discussed a little bit in the last video, we're in low-income housing, on food stamps, all that stuff, and have been the whole time. And I know a lot of people out there are immediately going to be like, "Bah! How dare you take from us?" and blah, 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 blah. Just calm down. It ain't like that at all. And we're going to talk a lot about this on the channel. But I have gone through the absolute ringer with people when it comes to their opinions about me being a stay-at-home dad. And I want to, kind of talk about the whole process because, well, 2 of mine are almost out the house. Well, 1 is. And, with having a third, I kind of am stuck. And I'll admit, in a lot of ways, that sucks. So we're going to talk about all that. So starting off, the wife and I started off in a really rough spot. And there's a long story that goes with everything. And I'm not going to talk about the whole story here. But what happened is life, and then I moved here to Colorado. And there was some ups and downs. I was living with people who were supposed to be my friend and, kind of help me out because I'm in a new place. I was making a new start for myself. And it didn't go that way. And I ended up homeless. And when I was homeless, that's its own discussion. Homelessness sucks. There's a lot of stereotypes and stuff. And we're going to talk about all that in a future video, I'm sure. So, went through homelessness and I was struggling real bad and I met this girl. She was actually dating at the time a friend of mine and I was like, I think she's cute. If you ever break up with her, let me know. I'll tag in. I think I'd like a chance with her. And just like a lot of relationships when you're young, they went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, off and on, off and on. And of course, we were having fun, being adults sometimes. And baby. And so, me being homeless, I didn't know what to do. I didn't, right? I was not ready for, here comes a baby, and you're homeless, and you're struggling, and all this stuff is going on, and it's hard, and So, we struggled. We went through a lot of crazy stuff that I will talk about in the future. I mean, it was bad. And then we eventually got into our first low-income housing place together, and we moved in with a box of plates, a lamp, a fan, and an air mattress. We literally had just that stuff. That was it. We didn't have anything else. There was no knickknacks, no fancy stuff. It was the bare minimum, and a baby on the way. And cards were falling in negative and positive ways at the exact same time we were having a baby. That's really exciting. But her family didn't like me and were causing a whole bunch of problems. We almost were homeless with a baby. And then we got this place and we had very little and it was crazy. Right? So we had to do all this stuff to be in low income housing, get on food stamps, do all those things. And in the beginning of that, we were trying to figure out how to raise a family and what were the right steps and what's the, it's a lot. It's a lot when you have everything settled in. You have a house and you have money and you're having your first kid and you're ready for that first kid. You're like, I want my first kid. I'm so ready. I got the money and everything. It's still a lot. And you had all this crazy life stuff going on, plus the baby on the way. And we're trying to figure all this out. Who's gonna work? Are we both gonna work? We both tried working. We both did work. And we had jobs back and forth and it was really hard. And then our daughter was born, and my wife wasn't working, and I was, and then I got canned, and it's just back and forth, back and forth. And eventually, we're like, okay, well, we have a baby at home, and somebody needs to raise and watch this baby. And somebody else needs to work, or both of us need to work and have someone watch this baby, our daughter, our first kid. And of course, during this conversation, we kind of figure out like, well, none of her family is going to help out. They're not being very helpful, and that's a whole big backstory in itself, but they're kind of useless at that time, and still to this day pretty useless. And not all of them, I don't want to trash too hard, but we've had a rough relationship, me and her family. And so getting through all that, trying to figure out work and everything, she's working, and we decide, okay, like, she's kind of better at working. I have a lot of issues that make it hard for me to work in a normal circumstance, and we'll talk about that. Like, they just got a lot of mental shit and a lot of stuff I've been through, and it's hard to work certain jobs. So, like, okay, somebody's got to watch this kid. Her family's not going to help out. I don't have family. They're all, unfortunately, well, except for an aunt and uncle, set of aunt and uncles who live very far away. They've all passed on. My mom and dad are gone, and like I mentioned in the last video, my mom was murdered. Long story with that. So, yeah, going through all this stuff, so I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad. This is what I'm going to do. And so, wife starts to go to work and does all the things, and well, of course, we're still going to do stuff. Just because we had a kid doesn't mean we're not going to have some fun. And go figure. Second baby. It happens to a lot of people out there. It's pretty normal. And so here comes the second kid. And of course, we're still going through all this stuff. We're trying to figure everything out. We have him. He's awesome. Same thing, though. We're still like, okay, now we've got 2 kids. Doubled the bills, doubled the responsibility. Somebody's still got to stay at home and watch them. Who's it going to be? Well, through the wife and me, like, I'm just better at dealing with some of the stuff kids have, and she's better at working. So, that's the way we went back right to that. And, we've had a lot of ups and downs over the years. She's had a lot of different jobs, and a lot of good jobs and bad jobs and everything in between. And during this whole time, I've been staying at home. And of course, people have lots of opinions about that. Like, what do you do during your day? Well, for many years, I ran what is now a defunct YouTube channel, and I'm sure I'll talk about that one day as well. But, I try to get my feet wet here on YouTube and do some stuff and figure stuff out, and it just didn't work out, right? And that was just to bring in some extra money, basically to get people to shut up and leave me alone, because they think being a stay-at-home dad is just all candy and rainbows and it's the best thing ever. And no, I want to work and bring home money. Well, who's going to raise my kid? Well, take them to a daycare. Look at me. This is the problem we have with our society today, is parents aren't there for their kids. And you could say, well, what about during the day when they're at school? Okay, yeah, but if somebody's home and that kid calls and you're there, and you don't need to be like, hey, I got to call off work, my kid, I got to go from this, job that doesn't like when I leave. If you're working, a not so good job, you know how it is. If you're working at McDonald's, you're working fast food, you're working just a place that doesn't have that kind of stability built in, and you're like, hey, my kid's messed up, they're still not going to be happy. I don't care if they're messed up. They're not going to be happy with you leaving, right? We all know this. And so, being at home has been a big part of all of that. And also with low income, there's a lot of stuff that happens that we will talk about in the future that makes it really hard for 2 people to work and make ends meet and like try to get out of low income and build what we have now. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a trap. If anybody had told me, like, don't get into low income, it's a trap. It's going to trap you and you're going to be sucked in it. And even like I discussed this video, try to bring your family into it and have, like in this case, my daughter needs to now pay bills here because we're off of food stamps. It's just stuff like that just always happen. And so it's like, it's easier for me to be here. It's easier for me to be stable and be a good dad. Now, if you meet my kids out in the real world, the 2 older ones, you will find out rather quick that, yes, they're kids. They're going to make mistakes. They're still young, but I am damn proud of them. I couldn't be happier as a dad. And like I said previously, one of the biggest problems we have right now in society is parents not being there for their kids. I see it with my wife. I do not want to sound offensive. She's great, but she comes home from work, even now, with a little one and the 2 big ones, and she's worn out from the day, man. When you go to work, you get worn out. Even if you love your job, it wears on you. And you're going to find things that you don't like about your job. Even if it's the best job in the world, eventually you're going to find things that irritate you. And that happens. And so she comes home, and some days she's in a great mood and she wants to interact with everybody and she's not worn out. But a lot of days she comes home and you can tell she just needs her space. And that's not good when you're trying to raise kids, because that happened to me. My dad came home from Texas Instruments when I was little, before he passed away, and he didn't want much to do with me. He was worn out from the day, and if I got in trouble at school, he would just, he'd blow up. He'd blow up at me and blow up at my mom. He'd freak out. It was a big problem. And, he didn't like coming to do homework with me and stuff like that. The only time I got interaction with my dad that felt meaningful before he passed away was like during the weekends. Now, does that make me think that he was a bad dad? No. I just think now that I'm adult and I've lived, this adulting life for 20-ish years and raised 2 kids, like, I know how it is. I see how it is. My wife comes home, she's tired, and she loves the kids and she wants to give them attention. On her days off, she'll sure do that. She'll bend over backwards to make sure everybody in the house is happy. But, when you get off work, you're worn out, you're tired, you don't want to deal with certain stuff. And growing up and watching that from my dad, and then being put in foster care with a single foster dad parent, and watching the struggles he went through with all of us foster boys coming in and out, and just all the craziness with that, like, I realized parenting, being a good parent, is like the most important thing you can do. If you have a kid, that's the thing you need to focus on. And some people out there like, well, do you need to go make money? You need to go make money. And it's, yeah, I'd love to. I would love to make some money, basically, so people, like I said earlier, will shut up. Just leave me alone. I'm doing fine. When you're on government stuff, like, we'll talk about all that one day, right? Like, it is a trap. If you're having kids and you're out there and you have any way to not get into low-income housing and not get on food stamps and not do those things, even though it may be tough, do it. Me and the wife didn't have that. We didn't have that other support at all. We had to, this was it. It was the only choice we had. And it's been rough, man. It's not been a fun adventure to go through all this low-income housing stuff. And now that we've had a little one again, I was gonna go get a job. I'm waiting for my kids. One's on the way to college, the other one's about to graduate. I was like, perfect. Now I can finally focus on me. The other YouTube channel failed. I didn't know if I wanted to do this and make yet another YouTube channel. I didn't know if I wanted to go get a job, but I was planning to do the job thing. I was like, well, the YouTube channel that I had before, it failed. It was not a good thing, and I put a lot of time and money and effort and blood, sweat, and tears. Like, okay, not blood, but definitely lots of sweat and tears and long nights and stressful mornings into that channel, and it wore me out. And so, like, I just wanted to go get a job, something I knew I could go do. I was so happy that my kids were, about out of the house at that time and, on their way and all that stuff. But, life, had another baby. And what are you going to do? We are being safe, but sometimes life happens. And, so being a stay-at-home dad has come with all these challenges and all this stuff. And I will talk much, much more about this many, many times over, I'm sure, throughout the adventure of this channel, because it's something I'm very passionate about. If you have, even if it's a struggle, I think having somebody at home, a mom or dad, that's always there, mentally, physically, always willing to take on anything that you need to take on to be the best parent you can be. I think that's the most important thing you can do with your adult life. Even though society's like, well, you gotta work, you gotta work, you gotta work. Like, look, man, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and it wasn't perfect, but I could see the good in that, even though we had our troubles and I ended up in foster care. Like, it just, I seen it. And so this is the choice that I've made, and it's come with a lot of baggage. A lot of people hate this. And hey, man, I understand where you're coming from. I had friends that I was close with that didn't support me. That was the biggest thing. If you're going to be my friend, I want your support, man. Like, the friendship is about a mutual thing. And when I told them, like, hey, man, I haven't been able to go get a job because my kids and all this stuff's going on, they knew. They were my friends. We talked a lot. And then, I was like, but I'm going to try this YouTube thing. When I did that, they were like, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You should go get a job. You shouldn't worry about YouTube. You shouldn't. And yes, it failed. It was a failed thing. And yes, I'm doing this again, and it could fail. It could fail miserably. I could never become anything. And honestly, that's fine. I'm just here to get all of this off of my chest, because I know people are going through stuff. See, I get rambly. It's just the way I am. Well, anyway, look, I hope you're having a good day. I hope life is treating you well. I hope you're not going through crazy stuff. And if you are, remember, there is light at the end of that tunnel eventually. The tunnel may be long, painful, and hard, and eventually you get over it. And that's life. You go through all this stuff. Like, I still today have all this hate from her family because I don't work. My wife's dad absolutely despises me, and I don't like him at all. And it's just, yeah. So, life can be what it is, but I hope you're doing good. And if you're not, I hope it gets better. Until the next time, later.